What's up, fellas? Happy Thursday to you. The weekend is almost here. Well, in some countries it already is here because right now it's Friday, I think, in Australia already. Now I'm gonna issue my normal, somewhat disingenuous disclaimer that a lot of my videos I always start saying I'm gonna try to keep this under 20 minutes or under 30 minutes or under 40 minutes, and then it's always 55 minutes or longer. I'm gonna try to keep this under 30 minutes and definitely under 40 minutes, but who knows, it might go longer than that. Okay, I get right to the point. Now, one of the things I've always said is that my Patreon exclusive videos are for my purely advice-driven. That's my purely advice-driven videos. I don't deal with beefs, drama, things in the news, none of that shit on my Patreon exclusive. Patreon exclusive is just to give my Patreon subscribers, just share my knowledge, wisdom, insight, and advice with them about interacting with women and generally having more romantic and or strictly sexual success with women. And my YouTube, as most of you know, that's for when I talk about stuff to do with back and forth beefs with people and some things that might be in the news, current events in the news, and probably most prominently feedback, me responding to feedback from what I call my haters and critics. My haters and critics. So this is going to be one of those videos. Now, I've received quite a bit of feedback from my next to last video, which primarily centered around me asking black men who follow this new movement or philosophy called SYSBM, what is the logic behind that? And I had most people who enjoyed that video, but I had at least a handful of haters and critics on that video. And then my last video was centered around, well, it talked about a few things, about approaching women versus the idea of chasing them. And it also was a rebuttal to the young brother Stefan Clinkscales, otherwise known as Steph is Cold. He made this strong assertion that black women only want black men that have some hood type swag or ghetto thug type swag. And of course, I disagree with that. And again, a lot of people enjoyed that video as well and gave me a lot of positive feedback in my comment section. But I had at least a handful of people who disagreed or so, I always, if somebody, as I always say, if somebody writes an email to me or email or a Facebook inbox message or some other way they communicate with me, and it's just something silly, like, "Oh, Ellen, you're a dick," I don't pay attention to that. But if it's presented in at least a halfway reasonably intelligent manner, I usually respond to it. Or I just think it's so ridiculous, I'll respond to it. That would be the second category. If it's intelligent, objective, I'll respond to it. Or I just think it's just, in many ways, just ridiculous and outlandish, I'll respond to it. So first, I'm going to start off with the one or two responses I got in response to the video I did about SYSBM. Main response I got from there was somebody said, "Alan, I've always mentioned that a lot of guys, when they want to criticize something I said, they start off complimenting me." I don't know if their compliments are genuine or full of shit, but they always start off saying like, "Hey, Alan, I generally like you and I like your videos and I like your books, but," there's always this but. And so some guy wrote me and said, "Alan, I like you. I like a lot of your commentary. I watch a lot of your videos, but in regards to the video you did on SYSBM, man, no offense, Alan, but it seemed like you one of them brothers that's doing one of two things, if not both, that you You one of them brothers that seem like you want all black men to continue to date these no good black bitches. Yeah, that's what this guy said. He said, Alan, you seem like you one of them brothers that want black men to continue to date these no good black, I think he specifically said American black bitches. Okay, before I go into the second part of that, I already addressed that recently when I was a surprise guest on Mumia Obsidian Ali's podcast last week. There's a young brother on YouTube that most black men are familiar with. His name is Edward Anderson. And I remember he said that one time, speaking of Mumia Obsidian Ali, he said that on Obsidian's live stream, I want to say about 2 years ago. He said that. He was one who accused me of that. He said, Alan Roger Currie impresses me as one of them brothers who want to keep black men on the plantation. On the plantation. Man, let me make it clear like I did on Obsidian Show just last week. Man, I don't give a fuck who you all date or who you all lay in bed with. I dare anybody to find a quote from one of my videos where I've said that all black men should limit themselves to only dating black women, and more specifically, only dating American black women. I dare you to. I'll give you $500 if you can find a quote where I say that. Literally, I'll give you $500 if you can find a quote from my video where I said all black men should only exclusively limit themselves to dating black women, and more specifically, American black women. I've never said that. I've never implied it. I don't even know where that comes from. Really, I don't know where that comes from. Like, similar thing, I've had some of my haters and critics, this specifically black male haters and critics, say, oh, I don't watch Currie. He one of them brothers that's always defending the fuckery of black women. That's bullshit. And again, I dare you to find a video where I defend the fuckery. I've never defended low quality black women, ever. Ever. I've never defended low quality, highly undesirable black women. What I do is I do just the opposite. I defend good black women, high quality black women. Because see, a lot of you guys who criticize black women, really women in general, but I'll particularly for now emphasize just black women. A lot of you guys who criticize black women, y'all throw in the good ones with the bad ones. And see, that's what I don't like. Because the reality is, any black man who believes that 100% or even 99% of black women ain't about shit, y'all full of shit. I want to know what you got to offer. What you got to offer that makes you high quality. Huh? What makes you high quality? You guys who give these broad generalizations of how undesirable black women. I got a good black woman in my life right now. I'm in a relationship with a black woman. I don't have no criticisms of her. So that proves that there's some good black women out here, because shoot, I don't date nothing but quality black women. I don't date no quote unquote ain't shit black women. I don't know what type of black women y'all be hanging around that y'all think 90, 95, 99% of black women ain't about shit. What kind of black women y'all interacting with? That's what I want to know. What, y'all hanging out in the hood or something? Because among the black people I associate with, which is typically college educated black women from middle class, upper middle class families, it ain't no high percentage of ain't shit black women. Like most of my black female friends from high school and college are married, happily married. Their husbands love them to death. Most of my frat brothers are married to American black women, and they love their wives. So I don't know what the fuck y'all talking about. My older brother is married to an American black woman, loves her to death. Ain't nothing low quality about her. So I don't know what the fuck y'all talking about. But back to my original point, I don't care who you date. I don't care who you date. If you got great 4-star on a 1 to 5-star scale, if you got 4-star or 5-star sexual chemistry with a woman, hook up with her. Even more so if you got 4-star or 5-star sexual and non-sexual chemistry with her, go ahead and get into a relationship with her. I don't care if she white, Asian, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, whatever. If you're attracted to her, she's genuinely attracted to you. I don't care what race or ethnicity. I ain't into this race ethnicity discussions. That's why none of my books specifically concentrates on black men versus black women. Like, I've actually had a few people criticize me that. They say, Alan, none of your books specifically address issues between black men and black women. Because for me, men are men and women are women. Yes, there's some nuanced differences from race to race, ethnicity to ethnicity. But overall, man, women are women and men are men. And a lot of white men have the same problems with white women that black men have with black women. Yes, they do. A lot of Asian men have the same problems with Asian women that black men have with black women. A lot of Hispanic men have the same problems with Hispanic women that black men have with black women. Y'all try to make it look like, a lot of you black men try to make it look like black men experience 10 times more problems with black women than any other race of man does. Get the fuck out of here. There would be no such thing as MGTOW if that was true. Because MGTOW is predominantly a Caucasian movement. Even though it includes men of all races and ethnicities, MGTOW is predominantly a Caucasian movement. If white men weren't frustrated with white women, there would be no such thing as a 21 convention, which I spoke at in 2017, 2018. There would be no such thing as a 21 convention if there weren't white men frustrated with white women. Most of the guys who attend 21 convention are white men who are frustrated with white women. So y'all kill me trying to act like black women are the only ones that have their race of men frustrated. Man, get out of here with that shit. Second thing related to this guy who criticized my next to last video. I don't know his exact words, but he tried to suggest, he said, man, Alan, again, I like you, man, but with all due respect, man, I'm tired of all these brothers in the manosphere trying to dick police other black men. Man, please. You can address that as somebody else, but you don't even dare address that at me. I don't give a fuck who you fucking. I don't dick police nobody. I don't give a fuck who you fucking. I don't try to tell no man who to fuck. I dare you to name any book of mine where I'm trying to tell a man who they should fuck. Like, for example, if they should fuck an older woman or a younger woman, or an educated woman or an uneducated woman, or a black woman or a white woman. You ain't gonna find none of that shit in my book. I give advice on whichever woman you want to date. My main advice is be upfront, specific, and straightforwardly honest with that woman about what type of companionship do you want. Do you want long-term companionship or short-term? Do you want strictly monogamous sexual companionship or non-monogamous / polyamorous companionship? That's what I care about, is how you verbally communicate your desires, interests, and intentions to women. So miss me with the whole dick policing shit. I ain't police. No, I don't give a fuck about what nobody does. You can fuck a squirrel and I don't give a fuck. Even though I think it's against the law to fuck squirrels. But if you choose to fuck sex dolls, I don't give a fuck. That's on you. I don't give a fuck. It don't make no difference one way or another with my career. Just about all my advice centers around verbal communication. I ain't no matchmaker. I'm a dating coach, and more specifically, a verbal communications coach. My advice applies to men of all races, all ethnicities, all ages. And that last one leads me to a segue into my next feedback when I said all ages. Now, in regards to my last video I did, again, where I addressed the issue of approaching women versus chasing women, and then my main thing was I was offering a rebuttal to Stefan Klinkscale's assertion that just about all black women want black men that have some type of hood type swag or ghetto thug street nigga type swag. I disagree with that. What I basically, my counter argument is that women just in general want to hook up with a brother that's smooth. They want to hook up with a guy that's smooth, confident, masculine, smooth, and sexy and seductive. Confident, masculine, smooth, sexy, and seductive. That's the main thing that most women are looking to hook up with, particularly if you're talking about for casual sex. I would say even for relationships, but definitely for casual sex. Definitely for casual sex. That's the main thing they're looking for, is guys that are confident, masculine, smooth, sexy, seductive. And brothers from the hood don't have no monopoly on that. I tell you straight up, and I'll let my cocky ego come out full force. I know for a fact I'm more confident than a lot of motherfuckers from the hood. I'm more masculine than a lot of motherfuckers from the hood. And I'm more smooth, sexy, and seductive than a lot of motherfuckers who come from a ghetto or hood background. I know that for a fact. Quote me on that shit. But anyway, in relation to that video, I had at least one guy write me. It was just a really silly comment, but I got to respond to it. I had a guy say, man, Alan, first it was Alpha Male Strategies, now it's Steph. Man, what's up with your jealousy of these brothers, man? I think you jealous because both of them get more views on their YouTube videos and both of them have more Patreon subscribers than you, man. I think you just jealous. And if he would have left it there, I wouldn't even bother responding to this or offering a rebuttal to this. But he took it a step further. He said, man, I agree with Alpha Male Strategies when he said that nobody should be listening to some old nigga that's over 50 because all of your advice is outdated. Outdated. I thought I turned my computer off. Wait. I hear notifications coming up on my computer. Yeah. So this person who wrote me offered two things. He said, Alan, I think you're jealous of both Alpha Male Strategies and Stefan Klinkskills because they have more YouTube, they have more views. They tend to have more views on their YouTube videos. They got more YouTube subscribers than you, and they got more Patreon supporters than you. Again, if he would have left it at that, 99% chance I wouldn't even respond. But then he took it a step further and said, I agree with Alpha Male Strategies' assessment of you when he said that nobody should be listening to some old nigga that's over 50 because almost all of your advice is outdated and only applies to the 1980s and 1990s. It don't apply to 21st century dating. Insert dog face here. Now, actually, I don't know about the part where he said that Alpha Male Strategy said that no man should be listening to an old nigga that's over 50. I never heard that with my own ears. But I did. But when Alpha Male Strategies did first start become popular, and when he was in his phase where he was going after me and attacking me, that was one of his criticisms of me. He said that my videos were too long, and they included a lot of lengthy rambles and digressions away from the main topic. And along with that, he said Alan Roger Currie, a lot of Alan Roger Currie's advice is outdated for men in the 21st century. And he did actually say that he felt like a lot of my advice was only relevant and only beneficial and applicable to the 1980s dating scene and the 1990s dating scene, but starting with the 21st century, that a lot of my advice is irrelevant and outdated. Okay, and now I'm getting ready to shred both of y'all motherfuckers to pieces. Like Professor Alan Roger Currie does. I'm going to shred all of y'all to pieces. Here's the thing, man. As the title of this video suggests, it ain't no real difference between dating between roughly 1985 and 2020. It ain't. It ain't no real difference between dating rituals between 1985 and 2020. Now, I dare anybody to say that there is. Are there some minor differences? Yeah, there's a few minor differences. As far as like really major difference, it ain't no different. See, like one of the things that was, if I say so myself, that was profound about my book, Mall 1, when it first dropped in 1999, I used me and my father. Like, one question I've had people ask me, they say, Alan, I've heard other dating coaches and pickup artists and seduction gurus, they mentioned that they had at least one or two mentors, people who mentored them and basically taught them the dating game. And some people ask me, they say, Alan, who was your mentor? Was it your father? Was it your older brother? Was it one of your older frat brothers? Who was your mentor? Well, I think I mentioned this once or twice before. I didn't have a mentor. Not a real life one. I didn't have a real life mentor. I'll start with my father. See, my father's generation had a totally different set of dating rituals than my generation. So I couldn't really absorb any knowledge, wisdom, or advice from my father because he came from a totally different generation. Like, for example, my father was 22 in the year 1951, was when my father was 22. He was 22 in the year 1951. I was 22 in the year 1985. If you compare dating rituals, at least in the United States, in 1951 to dating rituals in 1985, they're worlds apart. They're worlds apart. And all you got to do is read my book, The Beta Male Revolution, and where I explain that. They're worlds apart. Dating, I can't speak for all countries, but definitely in the United States, dating rituals prior to 1960 was totally different than dating rituals starting with the late 1960s, early 1970s, and beyond. Totally different. In real simplistic terms, in my father's generation, dating was all about finding your wife or husband. That's what pretty much all dating centered around, was finding your wife or husband. Premarital sex was severely frowned on prior to 1960. Casual sex, non-relationship sex, was severely frowned on prior to 1960. Having babies out of wedlock, outside the context of marriage, was severely, double severely frowned on before the 1960s. So that's at least three things that were totally different before the 1960s. Was the notion of engaging in sex before marriage. That was generally heavily frowned on. I would say particularly if you were from a middle class or upper middle class family. The idea of casual sex in general, non-relationship sex, what we now call hookups, casual hookups, that was severely frowned on prior to 1960. And definitely, most definitely, the idea of a woman giving birth to a baby outside the context of marriage. That was, man, dude, my mother and her two sisters wouldn't have even thought about getting pregnant outside of, man, my grandfather would have literally whooped their ass. And I ain't even saying that jokingly. He would have put hands on them, dude. Fathers did it. In case you don't know, for people saying, oh, Alan just being melodramatic. No father gonna put, shoot, back in the day, you could legally do that shit. If your daughters get out of line, shit, back in the 19th century and early part of the 20th century, if you were a father and your daughter got out of line, you could put hands on them. You didn't go to jail for that shit. Nowadays, you can go to jail or prison for that. Back in the day, you could literally, physically assault your wife without any major legal ramifications or your daughters. So for those, when I say my grandfather would have whipped my mother and her sister's ass who might think I'm just exaggerating, no, that's real talk. Back in that day, they didn't have that domestic violence rules and laws that they have today. Yeah, if your daughter got out of line with you as a father, you could whoop her ass. I mean, not to the point where she was like beaten like a pulp. You probably catch some hell for that. But at minimum, you could give her a harsh spanking. But no, man, my mother told me, man, her and her two sisters, they didn't even remotely think about having sex before they got married. I wasn't even like in their thinking process. So, no, my father was not my mentor. My older brother, yeah, he gave me some advice when I was young. Mainly, his advice was more so related to long-term relationships than it was casual sex. Actually, when it came to casual sex, for me, it was just the opposite. My brother actually took a lot of advice from me. I actually gave my brother a lot of advice when it came to hooking up with women for casual sex. But my brother, he gave me some. But I think everybody know who you want to know who my main mentor was? It wasn't my father. It wasn't my older brother. It wasn't one of my older frat brothers. It was the fictional character of John Leslie in Talk Dirty to Me and Talk Dirty to Me Part 2. And I'm not even saying that jokingly. That was like the closest thing I had to a mentor. Particularly if you're talking about for the pursuit of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex. Yeah, definitely for casual sex. I don't know about for relationships, but for casual sex, that was the closest thing I had to a mentor was when I watched John Leslie. As most people know, he was one of my number one inspirations for my Mode 1 philosophy. Was John Leslie's character of Jack in Talk Dirty to Me, which was produced in 1980. And Talk Dirty to Me Part 2, I think, which came out in 1983. Yeah, that was the closest thing I had to. Because, see, most of the guys in my generation, my age, it wasn't hardly anybody that was Mode 1. So I didn't have a Mode 1 mentor because nobody was Mode 1. Most of the guys in my age group, I've pointed this out a number of times before. When I was in high school and college, here was the number one way that most guys ended up having casual sex with women. They either A, just simply waited for women to throw pussy at them. In other words, Mode 0. Yeah, they had that's what happened to me my senior year in high school. See, in high school, most of my casual sex pussy was because women just basically approached me first, initiated interactions with me first, and essentially handed me pussy on a silver platter. What I would now call Mode 0. So that would be one method of having casual sex in my generation, was a lot of guys had Mode 0 type casual sex. Number two was guys would lie to women and mislead and manipulate them. Basically, they would lie to women and give them the misleading impression that they wanted to be that woman's next long-term boyfriend. But then once they get the ass 2 times, 5 times, 10 times, they would just dump the woman. What's commonly now known as pump and dump. And then the third method that most guys in my generation scored casual sex was by getting a woman drunk or getting her high, which now you can't really do because a woman can charge you with date rape. So that was the 3 main ways that guys in my generation scored casual sex. Is either they were just so handsome and full of so much sex appeal that women just threw the pussy at them and they took it, what I would call Mode 0. Number 2, they lied to women, misled and manipulated women, toyed with women's emotions to get the pussy. Or 3, they got women sloppy drunk or got them high with marijuana or cocaine or something. Other than those 3 methods, it wasn't really anybody. Like, I can't think of anybody I went to high school with or college with that was Mode 1 in the manner that I was. At most, there might have been 1 or 2 other guys on the entire campus of any university that had an approach that was somewhat similar to Mode 1. But for the most part, wasn't really nobody Mode 1. That's why when I first started being Mode 1, why I caught the attention of so many of my friends and frat brothers. Because wasn't nobody else using that approach. Wasn't nobody going up to women and just straightforwardly telling them, hey, I don't want to be your boyfriend. I don't want no long-term relationship with you. I just want to fuck you. Wasn't nobody bold enough to do that other than me. So no, I didn't have no mentor. But anyway, going back to this issue of my age and the accusation that my advice is supposed to be outdated. Again, if you compare the dating rituals from my father's generation to the dating rituals of my generation, there was a big difference. See, that period, as I point out in the Beta Male Revolution, that period between 1960 and roughly 1974 changed everything about dating rituals in the United States at minimum, and I would say even more so worldwide. But when it comes to the dating rituals of, say, men who operated in the 1980s and early to mid 1990s versus right now, what are the major differences? I want y'all to tell me, what are the major differences? Like, since this guy who wrote me brought up alpha male strategies, I'm going to attack alpha male strategies. Alpha male strategies has been guilty of calling a large part of my advice outdated. And I've always asked him to be specific, which he never has responded to. I said, be specific. What aspect of my advice is outdated? Number one, why is he biting off of my shit if my shit's outdated? That's number one. Yeah, I'm going to bring it up again. Why is alpha male strategies biting off of my advice, basically repeating, regurgitating, and essentially verbally plagiarizing my advice if my advice is outdated? If my advice is outdated, why is he biting off of me? Alpha male strategies, and anybody knows this, he done pretty much plagiarized the first 4 chapters of my book, The Possibility of Sex. Not so much in book form, but definitely verbally on his videos. He has pretty much plagiarized the first 4 chapters of my advice I offer in my book, The Possibility of Sex. If my advice is outdated, why is he plagiarizing my shit? That's what I want to know. That's the $1 million question. If my advice is so outdated, why is he plagiarizing my shit?
All right, what's up, fellas? So my last couple of videos, I was dealing with talking about validation, giving women validation, and it seemed to have a lot of guys confused as into what was validating women and what was not. I had a lot of guys asking, is this validating women? Is that validating women? Well, guys, basically, validating women is pretty much anything anytime you're giving a woman your non-sexual attention. So basically, women already know you want to have sex with them. So that's nothing. But what a woman wants to get you to do when she knows you care about her is when you're giving her a lot of your non-sexual attention. So that's why we tell you guys don't talk on the phone and stuff like that. Because when you're talking on the phone, you're giving a woman your non-sexual attention. You're validating her. That's how you end up in the fucking friend zone. Because see, once you validate a woman and you give a woman a lot of your non-sexual attention, well, she has no reason to give you her sexual attention because you're already giving her your non-sexual attention.
He's bitten off a lot of my material in the Beta Male Revolution. Why? If my advice is so outdated. He's even bit off at least a couple things from Mode 1. Even though he's anti-direct approach, as he points out in chapter 65 of his new book, he's anti-direct approach, but he's bit off one or two couple. I can name at least 1 or 2 things he's bit off of me from my book Mode 1. One of the things I say, going back to my 1999 version of Mode 1, is that your whole free time should never be consumed with just the pursuit of female companionship. You should develop some type of hobby, some type of interest. Focus on self-improvement and personal development. What is Alpha Male Strategies always talking about? Focusing on your purpose. Basically focusing on self-improvement and personal development. He called his brand, his way, the way he's rephrased it is focus on your purpose. But essentially what he's talking about is focus on self-improvement and personal development. I say that in my 1999 and 2006 version of Mode 1. Another thing I say in my version in Mode 1 is about, that's when I first talk about limiting women's access to your non-sexual time, attention, and companionship. Don't be fun clubbing. Fun clubbing is basically when you pretending like you're cool with being a woman's platonic friend, when in actuality you want to be in a relationship with her or you want to have casual sex with her. That's what I call fun clubbing. AMS is bitten off of that. So if my advice is so outdated, why I got guys younger than me copying my shit? That's what I want to know. That's my $1 million question. If this old 56-year-old man's advice is so irrelevant and outdated for the 21st century, why do I have so many people 10 years younger than me, 15 years younger than me, 20 years younger than me, 30 years younger than me, copying my shit, plagiarizing my shit? Real talk. Like, still on the subject of Alvin Strange, when he came out with his book, his first book, his subtitle of his book is called, I can't remember the exact title, but the subtitle is something along the lines of Advice for Men Who Are Dating in the Age of Social Media. Advice for men who are dating in the age of the internet and social media. I read his first book. I couldn't really find anything in his book that seemed to be new, unique, and revolutionary. And most of these young guys who call themselves giving dating advice to men, in real simple terms, I'm 56. I can't name anybody who's 46, 36, or 26 that gives advice to men that has raised my eyebrows and made me say, damn, I've never covered that before. I've never thought about that before. Man, this young guy got some advice that I never thought of before. I can't name one person who has any of that type of advice. Not one. Literally, not one. There's not one so-called pickup artist out here, dating coach, seduction guru, game advisor, whatever you want to, other title you want to give, that's young. Like, for example, Alpha Strategy, I want to say he's about 15, 16 years younger than me. I think he's 40. He's either 39 or 40. So he's about roughly 16, at most 17 years younger than me. I read both his books. Well, I haven't finished his second book. I read his first book in its entirety, and I read probably about 60, 65% of his second book. I ain't found nothing in his book that isn't representative of stuff guys did in my generation. The only thing that I can say that's significantly different about dating in the 21st century that wasn't really that prominent or prevalent in the latter 2 to 3 decades of the 20th century would be men hooking up with women from other countries. That's probably the number one thing I can think of that is vast. Because see, like when I was in my 20s and maybe early to mid 30s, the only man who really was hooking up with women from other countries was men who were in the armed services, like was in the Army, Navy, Marines, or Air Force. Like my father, when he was young, he was in the Air Force. That's the only guys in my generation that typically hooked up with women from other countries. But the average guy, because we didn't have the internet and we didn't really have a regular means of communicating with women from other countries, you didn't have men really communicating with women or trying to date women from other countries. So that's the one aspect of dating I would say is more relevant to the 21st century than the last 3 decades of the 20th century, is men hooking up with women like from Brazil, hooking up with women from the Dominican Republic, hooking up with women from Europe and all these other countries. You didn't really have this global, what I would call global dating like you do now. Global dating is something that's taken off in the 21st century compared to the 20th century. But when it comes to dating rituals, men's pursuit of women from their own country, I can't name anything significant that's changed between the mid 1980s and right now. Hardly anything. Sexual harassment is more prevalent, starting with the 1990s, as well as date rape. Yeah, that's been more prevalent. I wrote an article in the Negro Manosphere about that. And of course, now you have the Me Too movement. But still, it ain't really changed shit. Even with those factors involved, it ain't really changed stuff that drastically. So I would like to know. I would like for someone to break it down to me like I'm a fifth grader. What aspect of my advice from Mode 1, what aspect from my advice in Who Said Again, what advice from my book, The Possibility of Sex, and what advice from my book, The Beta Male Revolution, could legitimately be categorized as outdated. Outdated. The reality is this, and this is what a lot of these young guys don't want to acknowledge. Almost all of the advice these young guys are giving guys on YouTube, they got from me. Yeah, I said it. They got from me. They either borrowed advice from my book, Mode 1. They borrowed advice from my book, Who Said Again. They borrowed advice from my book, Possibly Say. They definitely, a lot of guys have borrowed advice from that book. Of all my 4 books, if there's one book that I would say has been ripped off the most, is the advice I give to guys in The Possibility of Sex. And a lot of guys have borrowed the knowledge, wisdom that I share in the Beta Male Revolution. Period. Drops mic. In my Patreon exclusive portion, I'm just going to briefly talk about why you should always prepare yourself for adverse reactions. That's in my Patreon exclusive portion.